I almost didn't find it. The coat had been at the back of the closet since March. It was November when I pulled it out. That first cold week when the city decides it's done pretending, when you reach past the lighter jackets and get the real thing, the wool coat you wore all winter and hung up in spring without checking the pockets first. I found a receipt, a folded-up grocery list, a pen that still worked, which felt like a small miracle. And then, in the inside left pocket, a piece of paper folded into quarters. In handwriting, I would have recognized if you'd shown it to me in a photograph from 100 feet away. I stood in my hallway with my coat half on and read it once. Then I sat down on the floor of my hallway and read it again. My name is Seth Hara. I was 31, a sound engineer at a recording studio in Portland, Oregon. The person in the room you don't always see, behind the glass in the dark, responsible for what you hear. I spent my days shaping the space between sounds, the silences as much as the notes, making sure what the musicians felt in the room translated intact to whatever the listener eventually encountered. It was precision work that felt, on the best days, like a kind of listening so complete it became physical. I had been in Portland for 5 years, since finishing a graduate program in audio engineering at NYU, and I had built a version of my life there that was full in most of the ways that counted. Good work. A small circle of people I trusted. A studio that had started giving me the larger projects, full albums, not just tracking sessions, which meant a kind of responsibility I had been working toward and was only now learning how to carry. I had not been in a serious relationship in 3 years. Not from grief, not from damage, just from the specific combination of absorbed work and quiet temperament that made me someone who moved slowly in every direction, including toward people I cared about. I knew this about myself. I had occasionally wished it were different. I had not, until November, understood quite what it had cost me. Her name was Maya Reeves. She was 30, a studio musician, guitar primarily, session work, some composing, who had been playing at the studio, on and off, for the 2 years before November. She had come in first on a folk record for a local artist, then a few times more for different projects, and somewhere in that accumulation of sessions, she had become one of those people who was simply present in the fabric of my working life. Someone I expected to see in certain rooms on certain days without having consciously cataloged it as expectation. She was from Vermont originally, had the particular quality of someone raised in a place with weather, grounded in a way that didn't need to announce itself. Medium height. Dark brown hair she kept in a braid for recording sessions, loose otherwise. She played guitar like someone having a private conversation that happened to be audible to other people. She was also, without particularly trying, the funniest person in most rooms she walked into, not in a performing way, but in the way of someone whose observations arrived slightly sideways to expectation. Once, during a session break, the producer asked the room if anyone had eaten, and she said, without looking up from her phone, "I had a spiritual experience with a gas station burrito at noon. I'm still processing it." The room took a full 10 seconds to recover. She did not appear to notice she'd said anything unusual. I had noticed her in the way I noticed most things. Carefully, quietly, with a precision I didn't always act on. What I had not noticed was how much I had been noticing her. The coat was mine, but the occasion of its use had been hers. In March, on a Thursday evening, a group of us had gone out after a long session. Me, Maya, 2 of the other musicians, the producer. It was that particular post-session relief that settles over a room when something difficult has finally gone right. We went to a bar 3 blocks from the studio, the kind of place that was too loud to talk easily but not so loud that you gave up, and we stayed for 2 hours. It was cold that evening. One of those March nights that hasn't yet decided to be spring. Maya had come from somewhere else, and hadn't brought a heavy jacket. I noticed this when we stepped outside and the cold hit, and she pulled her arms in with a gesture that was trying not to seem like shivering. I gave her my coat. Not dramatically. I took it off and held it out, and she looked at it for a moment and then said, "Seth, you're going to be cold." "I'm fine," I said. "I run warm." This is not entirely true, but it is what I said. She put the coat on. It was large on her. She was smaller than me, and she looked at herself and said, "I look like someone's dad." "You look warm," I said. She laughed. She wore it the 4 blocks to her car. She gave it back at the parking garage and said thank you, and I walked back to the studio to get my things with the cold on my shoulders and felt unreasonably fine about it. I hung the coat up when I got home. I did not check the pockets. March became April. Maya was in for 2 more sessions, then a longer stretch in May for a project that ran 3 weeks. We had the particular ease of people who have accumulated enough shared hours that the small talk stage has dissolved, and what's left is just conversation. Comfortable, intermittent, specific. She talked about the composing. She was working on a set of original pieces, not for any particular client, just for herself, which she said with a slight self-consciousness, like she wasn't sure she was allowed to spend time on something purely her own. I told her that the work you do for yourself was the work that trained you for everything else, which I believed and which made her quiet for a moment. "You think that?" she said. "The sessions that taught me the most were the ones where we were just experimenting. Nothing at stake, no client. Just, what does this room sound like if we try this?" She nodded slowly. "That's what these feel like." "Then they're the right thing," I said. She looked at me with a small expression I couldn't entirely read. Something that was considering and warm and carefully contained, like a window with the light on inside and the curtains mostly drawn. Then one of the engineers came to tell her the studio was ready, and she went in. In July, she took a 3-month stretch in Seattle, a larger project, a well-known producer. The kind of opportunity that doesn't come twice, she told the studio. She told me the day before she left, in the hallway by the equipment storage, in the particular way of someone who has decided to say a thing casually so it doesn't become more than she means it to be. "Seattle for a while," she said. 3 months, maybe 4. "Good project?" I said. "Really good." A pause. "I'll be back." "I know," I said. She left. The studio felt slightly different without her in it, in the particular way a room changes when a sound you'd stopped consciously registering is gone. You don't notice the presence until the absence. I did not tell her this. I was not, in July, sure enough of what it meant to say it. She came back in October, a Tuesday, a session for a project she'd been brought in on. I heard her voice in the main room before I saw her, the specific pitch and cadence of it through the glass, familiar and slightly startling in the way of something returning. She came to the booth during a break. "How's Portland?" she said. "Consistent," I said. "How was Seattle?" "Good. Strange. Good." She leaned against the doorframe. "I missed the studio." She said it looking at the board. "Not at me." "The studio missed you," I said. She looked up. A small pause, something careful in it. Then she smiled, not the full one, something quieter, and went back out to the main room. I turned back to the board and adjusted a level that did not need adjusting. November, first cold week. The coat from the back of the closet. The inside left pocket. The note was on a piece of cream-colored paper, folded into quarters, in her handwriting, small, slanted to the right, the kind of handwriting that looks like it moves at a constant velocity. Everything the same angle, everything the same speed. I read it twice on the floor of my hallway. Then I read it again. It said, "I keep starting this and stopping. I've started it in my head 100 times. I'm writing it now because you just gave me your coat in the cold without making anything of it, and I'm standing in this parking garage, and I think if I don't write it down I'll lose my nerve entirely. I've loved you since we met. I don't mean a little. I mean I notice when you're in a room before I see you. I mean I play differently when you're behind the glass. I mean I've been managing this for 2 years. Because I didn't know what to do with it, and I'm still not sure I do. I'm putting this in your pocket. Maybe you'll find it. Maybe you won't. Maybe that's better." I sat on the floor for a long time. There it was. Not a new thing. Not something that had arrived in November. Something that had been in the inside pocket of my coat since March. Through everything. Through the sessions in May and the conversation about composing in July, and the hallway in October, and the level I'd adjusted that didn't need adjusting. She had written it in March in a parking garage, standing in my coat. She had put it in the pocket, and I had hung the coat up without checking. I did not call her that night. Not because I was uncertain, I was not uncertain, but because I needed to sit with what I understood, which was that she had been carrying something I had felt and not named for 2 years, and had finally written it down and put it in a place where it could be found or not found, because she was being careful with something that could break. I needed to be equally careful. I thought about what she had written. I play differently when you're behind the glass. I had known this without naming it. There was a quality to her playing in those sessions that was not the same as her playing in others, a quality of attention that I had registered as the studio's air and understood now was direction. She had been playing to me, I had been listening with everything I had. We had been having a conversation through the glass for 2 years, and neither of us had named it. In the morning I went to the studio early. I sat at the board in the empty main room, which I never did. That was the musician's space, the booth was mine. And I thought about what I wanted to say and how I wanted to say it. I did not want to diminish it with efficiency. I did not want to overweight it with ceremony. I wanted to say the true thing in the way that suited the true thing. I wrote her a note. Not a long one. She had used a full paragraph to say something that could have been said in a sentence, and I understood why. The paragraph was the proof, the evidence of the thing's size, the accumulated detail that made "I've loved you since we met" mean exactly what she meant it to mean. I did not need a paragraph. I had the coat. What I wrote was, I found it. November, first cold week. I pulled the coat from the back of the closet and it was there. The note you put in the inside left pocket in March. I've been in the booth behind the glass listening to you for 2 years. I think I've known something true the whole time. I just didn't have the letter yet. I'm going to ask you to have dinner with me. Tonight, if you're free. Somewhere quiet where the sound is good. Seth, I left it at the studio front desk with her name on it, because she was coming in for a session that afternoon. Then I went to the booth and did my work and waited. She came to the booth at 4:15, between takes. She stood in the doorway. She had the note in her hand, folded once. Her expression was the still kind, not unreadable, just very composed, the way of someone holding something they don't want to spill. You kept the coat all this time, she said. In the back of the closet since March, I said. I thought, she stopped. I thought if you'd found it, you would have said something. I would have, I said. I found it last night. She looked at the note in her hand. I thought maybe it was better if you didn't. Simpler. Simpler, I said, and I heard the thing in my own voice that I had not been letting through. She heard it too. She looked up. Seth, she said. I've been listening to you play for 2 years, I said. I know what it sounds like when you're just playing, and I know what it sounds like when you're... There's a difference. I've known there was a difference. I didn't know it was that. She was very still. It was that, she said. I know, I said. I'm sorry it took me until November. She breathed out slowly, something unclenching in her, something she'd been holding at a specific tension for a long time, and was now setting down. Dinner, she said. Yes. Somewhere quiet where the sound is good, she said, reading my words back. I know a place, I said. She looked at me with the full version of the expression I had been getting corners of for 2 years. The window with the curtains open. Okay, she said. She went back out to the main room. I turned back to the board and did not adjust anything. We went to a restaurant in the Pearl District I had been to twice and liked for the specific quality of its acoustic design. Low ceilings, soft surfaces, the kind of room where 2 people talking quietly don't have to compete with anything. She noticed the room immediately. She noticed rooms the way I noticed rooms, which is one of those things you file away about a person over 2 years without knowing you're filing. We talked through dinner about the March night. Her side of it, the cold, the coat, standing in the parking garage after the others had gone, the specific combination of the cold and the borrowed warmth, and the wanting to say something while she still had the nerve. Why didn't you just say it? I said. That night, or after. She turned her wine glass. Because I didn't know what you'd do with it, she said, and I needed to still be able to work with you if the answer was nothing. I looked at her. The answer was never going to be nothing. I didn't know that, she said, simply, without accusation. She was right. I had not made it clear. I had been listening with everything I had, and she had not been able to hear it from the other side of the glass. The precision I had applied to the work, the attention I gave the sounds in a room, I had not been pointing it outward in a way she could read. I'm not good at making things obvious, I said. I know, she said. I love that about you. It was also a problem. I'm going to work on that, I said. Don't, she said. Then, at my expression, I mean, don't perform it. I don't need obvious. I just needed to know. She looked at me steadily. Now I know, she said. She is still a studio musician. I am still a sound engineer. We work together several times a month, and there is a specific quality to those sessions now that is different from what they were before November, though not in the way you might expect. Not more charged, not fraught with the awareness of each other, but easier, cleaner. The thing that had been creating a frequency between us without a name now has a name, and named things don't interfere the same way. She said once, listening back to a take we'd done together, that it was better. I asked what was different. She said, "You're listening from inside the room now, not from behind the glass." I thought about that for a long time. She was right. That was what had changed. In the spring, she played me the pieces she'd been composing, the personal ones, the ones she'd been working on for herself and not for any particular project. We sat in the empty studio on a Saturday afternoon, just the two of us, and she played them straight through without stopping, and I listened the way I listen when something is being made, and my job is to hold the space for it. At the end, she sat quietly with her guitar and didn't say anything. "They're extraordinary," I said. She looked up. "You think?" "The third one," I said. "That's the piece. That's the one." She smiled at the guitar. "I wrote that one in March," she said. I looked at her. "In the parking garage?" I said. "After," she said. "When I got home." She played 3 notes of it, quietly, not the whole thing, just the opening, a question the melody was asking that the rest of the piece answered. I knew what it was asking. I had known for a long time. Last month I found the coat again at the back of the closet. Second winter. She was at my apartment when I pulled it out, and she saw it and went quiet for a moment with an expression that was private and a little amused, and entirely hers. "Check the pockets," she said. I did. Inside left, a pen, a receipt, a piece of cream-colored paper folded into quarters. I looked at her. She looked at the ceiling with the expression of someone not trying to look innocent. I unfolded it. It said, "Found you." 2 words. Her handwriting, same slant, same constant velocity. I stood in the hallway holding it, and something in my chest did the thing it had been doing since November, the thing I had stopped trying to name because it didn't need a name, it just needed to keep happening. "Found you," I said. "Found you," she said. Have you ever almost missed something, a moment, a person, a piece of paper in an inside pocket, that turned out to be the thing you'd been moving toward without knowing it? And have you ever had someone love you quietly and patiently for so long that when you finally found out, it didn't feel like news, it felt like something you'd always known? Tell me your story in the comments. If this one stayed with you, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.